By 1995, 66% of all Venezuelans were impoverished. Getting poor tends to make voters radical, so inevitably Venezuela got radical politics. You know what happened next. Venezuela is now rated one of the most miserable places on planet Earth. A few years ago, citizens in Caracas were reduced to eating zoo animals. There was no food, and for that matter, there was no electricity. So in just half a lifetime, an advanced society had reverted to the Stone Age. The United States is not in danger of becoming Venezuela next week, but we are moving closer to it. Inflation is a big part of the reason. Of all the economic crises a country can face, inflation is the most dangerous. Inflation doesn't just make people poor, it totally destroys their confidence in their leaders, the authorities who issued the now worthless currency they're using for toilet paper. Inflation is not an act of God like a drought or hurricane, it's an act of negligence like drunk driving. It is proof that the people in charge are reckless and stupid.
They're doing this on purpose to weaken America. Look, they're building China up, and we're going where? This is all Joe Biden's fault and the globalists, their globalist policies.
The Biden administration is very worried about this. Joe Biden has historically low approval ratings. Voters say inflation is their top concern. Those two facts are directly related. So Biden's most pressing task right now is reassuring Americans that he understands their suffering under inflation and under a rapidly worsening economy, and that he's got a plan to fix it. If he can't convince Americans of that, it may be a long time before we have another Democratic president. Thankfully, Joe Biden has a plan, or at least a new publicist, a silver-tongued wordsmith/policy guru called Karine Jean-Pierre.
Another liar.
It is Karine Jean-Pierre's job to take this message of economic hope to the American people and save the Biden administration. The first words from the podium.
I'm obviously acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a Black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all three of those to hold this position.
Do we got to know her sexual whatever?
Actually, but America was about her. But still,
yeah, exactly.
We learned that Karine Jean-Pierre is a Black lesbian, the first ever in history.
That makes her qualified, huh?
Listen carefully. That shattering you hear in the background, it's 1,000 glass ceilings cracking simultaneously into millions of tiny pieces, and then being swept with the custodians of tomorrow into the trash bin of bigotry and hate, soon as we try to landfill and buried. It's a new day.
Oh my goodness.
How do you feel?
I just laugh at him.
Or go to the dentist. On the other hand, Karine Jean-Pierre has good news.
She's a gay Black woman who's got the job of lying to the American people. Wow, good for her.
Jean-Pierre, your promotion is America's promotion. Oh, it feels good.
Fucking
you're going to hold on to that sensation, what you're now experiencing, and treasure it in the days ahead.
Oh, goodness.
As America becomes poorer than you ever imagined possible. And it is. As of tonight, parents across the country can't find baby formula. Oh, no big deal. Well, it is actually a big deal because as a result of that, several children have just been hospitalized in the state of Tennessee. Fertilizer prices, meanwhile, have hit record highs. That will mean food shortages around the world, famine in some places, starvation. It'll mean shortages here. Food inflation, Bloomberg reports, will, quote, leave no household unscathed. And then gas prices also just hit an all-time high. They're not going down.
You don't think they're doing this on purpose? Nobody can screw up this bad. They want you to suffer as they flood in their country with their new voters.
And that's true.
They've got their new friends coming in.
Axios reporting
free housing, free food, free money, free brand new housing here in LA.
May never come back down to the levels Americans were accustomed to before the pandemic. More than half the CEOs in this country publicly predict that recession is imminent. That's what they're saying in public. Imagine what they're saying in private. Morgan Stanley says there's a 27% chance we get a recession in the next 12 months. That's up from 5% just 2 months ago. So that's scary. But the scariest fact of all, we appear to be running out of energy. Congress never passed the Green New Deal, but we somehow got it anyway. And here are the results. According to the Wall Street Journal, quote, from California to Texas to Indiana, electric grid operators are warning that power generating capacity is struggling to keep up with demand. That gap could lead to rolling blackouts during heat waves.
Again, we have them every year here in California. What happened to the windmills?
And it won't work, and neither will your lights. The Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which oversees the energy grid in the Midwest, says it's
We could
prepared
run
to
all our
take
power plants on
emergency
natural gas and never
measures
put
in
out
event
any
of
bad emissions in
capacity
California,
issues.
but they
In
won't
other
do
words, no more
that.
electricity. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation, which oversees energy output in the country, released an assessment this year saying the entire western U.S. is, quote, at risk of energy emergencies due to the limited supply of electricity available for transfer. So this has never happened. It's happening now. Why? Why is this happening? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, quote, challenge is that wind and solar farms, which are among the cheapest forms of power generation, don't produce electricity at all times and need large batteries to store their output for later use. Now, that's not only a big problem.
Guess who makes the wind turbines? Most of them. And the batteries. China.
Capacity in the U.S. last year, 42%, was from land-based wind farms. Put a lot of eggs in the wind basket.
Didn't
some
they?
states like California have pledged to use 100%, quote, renewable energy by 2045. So maybe we will have scientific innovation by 2045 that make that possible. If we don't, California will have even less power than it does now. You didn't think growing up in this country there would come a time when they couldn't keep the lights on. Now that time is here. That's shocking. But if you're upset about it, we'd like you to pause and return your attention to the fact, and we're going to say this slowly so we can sink in, our new White House press secretary is a black lesbian.
That's all we need to know. See, we're good.
White House press corps was duly impressed.
We're good.
Aimed, in fact, which was the point of telling them that. But our Peter Doocy did have one question. What is the Biden administration doing about our collapsing economy, and how exactly is the plan to increase taxes on American citizens going to help them pay for things? Here's how Karine Jean-Pierre responded.
How does raising taxes on corporations reduce inflation?
It doesn't. But watch this. Here comes word salad. Scrambled brain.
Down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share.
Look, we have talked about this past year about making sure that the wealthiest among us are paying their fair share.
But how does raising taxes on corporations lower the cost of gas, the cost of a used car, the cost of food for everyday Americans?
So look, I think we encourage those who have done very well, right? Especially those who care about climate change, to support a fair tax code that doesn't charge manufacturers, workers, cops, builders a higher percentage of their earnings, that the most fortunate people in our nation, and not let that stand in the way of reducing energy costs and fighting this existential problem. If you
Just
think
gibberish.
that as an example.
Gibberish.
Now, you wouldn't have thought it was possible to take talking points that stupid, that barely literate, that childish.
See what I
make them
mean?
even dumber.
Have you noticed
Yeah,
they're
that's exactly
all,
what she did.
they all speak like they're talking to kindergartners.
Did that
Unbelievable.
rattle your confidence rather than
And their
boost it?
message, they don't have, they don't even have a complete subject, a predicate, and a complete thought.
You're a racist. That's
Yeah.
what we call people who continue to ask complicated, long questions about Joe Biden's economic program. They're racists, and getting rid of them is America's greatest problem.
That's all they got. They don't have to debate it, don't have to talk about evidence or
of white supremacy
or topics and debate them. No, you're racist.
They make up part of the Republican coalition.
This shit just ain't gonna wash anymore.
This is always what the right does to appease the white supremacist movement by saying, hey,
See, everything's white supremacists, white supremacists, white supremacists. They just got to keep the black. I live in South Central. I've been here 2 years, never had any problems in my neighborhood whatsoever. We're the most diverse neighborhood you could probably find.
Did you hear that from the comb-over guy?
We all get along, but evidently, in the media's eyes, everything that you see that while racism, there's none here. My neighbors are black and brown, all of them.
Todd provides you is white supremacy.
Exactly.
That means
See how evil they are?
Food shortages or blackouts, you're a racist.
Exactly.
Racist. There you are complaining again about the precipitous decline in your standard of living. That's always the first sign of a racist. Oh, you don't like crime? You don't like litter? You don't like inflation? You're against public urination in New York City? You know what you are? You're a bigot, pal. Stop.
That's all they got.
You and your free speech.
Aren't you getting tired of being called being called a racist for over 5 years now?
Highly awarded broadcast journalist, so she knows exactly how racist you are. You're so racist that Gayle King's family members won't even go outside anymore. Watch this.
I'm so afraid. I have a nephew who lives in the Midwest, 20-something, black man, who walks his dog, who said, I was never afraid to walk my dog. Now I'm in the Midwest.
They're just going to
walking
keep it
around
going,
minding my
right?
business,
That's all they
thinking
got is
this could
racism
happen
and shit.
at any time.
See, Donald Trump
white
hasn't said he's going to run yet, right?
Someone with the First Amendment.
So they're just
That's
going to
right.
keep this going and hope it holds, hope it sticks all the way up, and then they can say Donald Trump's a racist and his followers are a racist, the same old shit.
The problem is definitely not that we're running out of energy to power civilization. That's not a big deal at all. And that's why you probably didn't read about the fact that the Interior Department just announced it is closing millions of acres to domestic energy production. Sorry, gone. Can't have the energy there. It exists, but you can't have it. You know what we can do, though? Buy it from Venezuela. Yes, we can. 20 minutes ago, they told you Venezuela was a criminal regime.
Yeah, now we're going to buy oil from them.
Not us. We can't. That's immoral because climate change is existential. But Venezuela can.
And they do it in a dirty manner.
Everything it can to allow the United States to buy Venezuelan oil directly. What does that add up to? Don't think about
Shooting ourselves in the foot. That's all it does. Just hurt us worse.
Don't believe it.
Spend more of our money when we don't have to.
Is here to remind you.
Donald Trump is running a racist campaign, the grand wizard of the birther movement, which birtherism is inherently racist. By the way, he's a racist and a bigot, which we already knew.
See,
like a racist,
it takes one to know one, doesn't
like
it? That bitch is more racist than any person I know.
Which is really racism just across the country. And we have a racist president.
I live in South Central, and that bitch talks more about racism than anybody I know that I live with every day, all my neighbors. She is a fucking liar.
Just change the topic for just a quick second about Donald Trump's racist tweets.
See, that's all they got. Donald Trump, racist, and Donald Trump. You keep saying it and saying it, but except we're getting fucking tired of hearing it. That bitch should get on her broom and fly.
This country needs to start talking about uprooting institutional racism. Fox News was racist before coronavirus. They are racist during the coronavirus. Fox News will be racist after the coronavirus.
You don't agree with us? You're racist.
Trump here. Just we need to have a conversation about, and by conversation we mean you shut up, I talk.
Yeah, that's their
We have a
conversation.
about how racist you are, which is very racist. So if you can't keep the lights on, or go to the dentist, or if you're one of the very few people, maybe 3 in the
Or you
country,
can't
whose
find
income
baby
prices
food.
have doubled since December. Why is that happening?
Because you're racist.
Jordan Murdoch is a contributing editor to National Review Online. We are delighted to have him join us tonight. My favorite part was when Karine Jean-Pierre, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, I don't want to be racist, he said, I'd like to change the subject for a minute, and then called someone else racist. That seems like the only subject, really.
Exactly.
It seems like the only one. Thank you for your act of racism and having me here tonight. But yeah, look, when you have nothing else to talk about, you don't have any answers, you don't have any actual solutions about work, you scream racism. Another thing that screaming racism does, it's a very polite, or maybe a somewhat more polite way of saying, shut the hell up. They don't want the conversation. They don't want the tough
Exactly.
They don't want anything else. In terms
They don't want to
of
answer. They don't have
So
answers.
scream racism that's designed not to advance.
They don't have
conversation,
answers to
but
fix
shut it down.
anything because
Go back
this
to what
is
we were
their
saying here
plan.
Earlier about Venezuela. I happened to visit Venezuela.
Open borders,
late 90s, early 0s.
kill our
Prosperous
energy
place,
industry,
beautiful place.
and
it's
weaken
totally right.
and
in order to keep us from
weaken
turning
the
into that
vote
country,
of the
which we
American
see
people
people
by bringing in illegal aliens,
store shelves, the climbing prices,
promising them,
baby
thinking
formula
that they'll
shortage,
vote
babies in
for the
hospital because of
Democrats
this
in
formula shortage.
5 or
Unbelievable.
7, 10
Joe
years.
Biden can fix a lot of problems, inflation, his political woes, which are
The only
terrible.
thing that the
Political
Democrats
stands
aren't
of the
thinking
party.
of, it's
By saying,
going to
"Look, I made a big
backfire
mistake
on
by shutting down
because
the
they know
pipeline.
what
We need to
socialism
increase
did,
domestic oil
where they're
production.
coming
We're
from.
going to start bringing energy prices down. If
They're going to
prices
stick
start to come down,
with
the rest
America
of the price will
first,
come down.
and
Inflation
it's
will
going to
to a degree.
backfire on
And I
them.
think if people at least saw inflation going down, confidence would improve, optimism would increase, and people.
But that's not what they want.
Right now, every time I turn
They
on
want
the TV,
everybody
gas prices
in
going
fear
up,
and
up,
everybody
away.
at each other's
Every day a
throats.
higher,
The
record
more
price
we
for
fight,
gas
the
and
less, the
diesel.
more
Now
that
it's
they
not
can
like diesel
shove
shortages coming.
down our
And as I say,
throats.
this place in less than a year and a half, in 15, 16 months, is looking a lot more like, it's beginning a lot beginning to look a lot more like Venezuela than anything you and I
Exactly.
ever could imagine.
Exactly.
The concern is not just poverty, but radicalism. I mean, no one's getting more moderate. So refusing to address people's legitimate concerns, calling them racist if they ask honest questions, all of that makes people more radical over time. Are you worried that the country could, you can kind of feel it moving underneath your feet?
No, absolutely.
And that's what I think a lot of people on the far, far left want. I think one of the greatest political slogans was that of Vladimir Lenin before the Russian Revolution. It was very, very simple, 4 words. The worse, the better. The worse, the better. The worse the conditions were, more people would be radicalized and say, look, we've had it with the Tsar. Maybe we should bring Lenin in. Maybe he can turn things around. I think there's some people who want total, utter chaos in society. I have a piece in the
Absolutely.
American
Well,
Spectator.
they let people
they have
loot,
nothing
riot,
terrible
steal in the
to
name
do
of
with
justice,
politics.
didn't
Some of the people
prosecute
in the far
anybody,
left
store
Democratic
was
Party,
fuck
they
you.
want exactly
This
that
is
kind of
for
chaos.
the justice of
Revolution
George
type
Floyd,
situation.
remember? A drug addict punk who fucking pistol whipped a pregnant woman. Yeah, you're a hero.
You too. Primary elections have